Hi, and welcome back to Racing Time Coaching. I'm Mike McMillan. In these videos, I talk about strategies for lifelong running and racing. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some training principles that I've picked up from Steve Magness, a running coach based out of Houston, Texas, that I incorporate into my training and into my advice to other runners. So just to give you an overview, we're going to talk about building your base, how not to speed up or why not to speed up your training, increase your training only when it's time, you lose what you don't train, and then finally, and something I talk about a lot, training is an N of one experiment. So first of all, the first thing you should do as you begin your training as a runner is to build your base. You should start each training season, especially your first one if you're a brand new runner, with lots of slow, easy miles. These do the best at getting your legs adapted to the exertion of running. Then when you get comfortable running easy, and I'm not going to give any sort of mileage totals, then you should add some strides once or twice a week. These are just situations where you increase your stride a little bit, hence the name, and run just a little bit faster, but not too fast. You know, a fast jog or maybe just a kind of an intermediate run, especially if you're a beginner. I would do maybe 20-second strides, do 5 to 7 of them to start out with. When I stride, I do 30-second strides, but when I'm warming up before a workout, I might just do 20-second strides with a minute rest between each one and maybe do 7 or 8. Once your strides get easy, then you're ready to add some short hill repeats of 20 to 40 seconds. Don't pick too steep of a hill. I won't go into grades because it's really hard to figure out hill grades, but just a intermediate, hill slope and 20 to 40 seconds and do 6 or 7 or 8 of those. Hill repeats are good because it's like speed work, but your legs don't get as tired and it's not as hard a workout. And then you should be using your base to connect to your goal race. So if you're running a 5K, then you don't have to run as many miles as you do for a base if you're trying to train eventually for a marathon. And then finally, you should be maintaining your base year-round. So even if you're in between seasons, keep doing some running and maintain that base so that you don't lose it and have to start over again. The next principle Magness talks about is not to speed up your training. So your body will tell you when you're ready to increase your miles and or your intensity. So pay attention to how your body feels after each run and after each week. I always kind of take stock on my rest day, which is Sunday, and see how I feel if I've had a good night's sleep. And I also will do that again on Monday morning when I begin my next week of running. Most importantly, though, don't overtrain. If you're feeling tired, either before or after a run, take the run off and even take extra rest days when you need to if you wake up feeling drained or if you're feeling fatigued on a run. Don't be afraid to rest as you start working into your training. The third principle is to increase your training when it's time. When what you're doing at the current time, those hard workouts start to feel easy, then it's time to make them a little harder. For volume, you can increase your volume slowly but steadily. A good general rule is 10% a week, but that's not a hard, fast rule. Experienced runners who are coming back to doing longer runs can increase at 15% sometimes. But just understand that generally speaking, 10% a week of total volume is probably a good rule to follow. And don't force your training. Again, if you're feeling tired after a week's training, knock back the volume some, or knock back the intensity, or knock back both. You know, if you're running 30 miles and you're tired, cut back to 20 for a week. If you're doing, 7 to 10 hard intervals, cut it back to 3 or 4, or even skip a week where no intervals at all. And then finally, you should take an easy week every 3 to 5 weeks or so, just to give your body a break from training. It doesn't have to be a week off, but you can cut your training back, to 80% of the prior week or some other percentage. Again, you'll get to know what you need to do to give your body a break. Another principle is that you lose what you don't train. So you need to vary your workouts and try to touch on all intensities every other week or so. So once you get experienced, then you're probably going to be doing a long run and 1 or 2 hard workouts every week. Sometimes those hard workouts should be short, faster intervals, and sometimes they should be longer threshold runs. But the point is that you need to vary them. 1 week do short intervals, the next week do longer threshold runs. Even vary the short and the longer runs in time and intensity and volume, because you need to touch on all the intensities as often as you can. And elite marathoners train like this because they know all the distances and intensities matter, and they want to touch on all of them and don't let themselves lose their built-up fitness for any of those intensities or distances. And then the last principle is running is an N of 1 experiment. Your body is going to respond differently to training than every and any other body. It's okay to use training plans, but understand that they're written generally and not specifically, so that if a certain plan doesn't work exactly for you, modify it or try to find another plan. You just need to do what works for you. And then finally, maybe the best advice, and I'm not saying this because I'm a coach, but consider hiring a running coach if you want more specific training. A running coach can learn how you personally respond to training and set up a training plan that is most customized for your body. So that wraps up the principles, or the training principles of Steve Magness that I follow in my own training and in my coaching. If you like what you're seeing in this content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a future video where again I'll be talking about my training, race reports, how to train after 50. That's an important topic for me since I'm 68 and I've been running consistently except for a 2-year break since I was 14. How to use cycling for cross-training, which is something I'm picking up new this year in my renaissance of running training. And I'll also be talking about other training techniques, why I don't run on trails anymore but still like to do ultra marathons. And if you have questions or want to talk about coaching, please email me at racingtimecoaching@gmail.com. Thanks a lot, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. And finally, thanks to SlidesGo for the slides for this presentation.